Hello computer gamers, this is Insomniac Andrew, and you could call me iAndrew for short. Today I'm starting a series, a YouTube video series, of course, about from Dota to League. So I've played Dota since the first year that the Frozen Throne was released, off and on until the original release of Ancient Apparition and Slark. That was during the winter time. It was whatever year it was. When I started playing, that was when I started playing it regularly, I should say. Now, in 2014, though, Dota 2 eventually became unplayable on my computer. So, now I've played League on and off since the time they gave away Rammus and Kale skins, as well as the champion. But I disliked the locking mechanisms of the game a lot, and so I didn't play the game a lot. Although, I still have a lot to learn about the game. So if anyone's in my shoes and realizing that their Dota is broken, and wants to learn about League, then perhaps they can come to this channel and learn along with me. Now, I've actually unlocked ranked. That is, I actually did what I suppose some other people have done, which probably isn't the most intelligent thing ever to do. But I ended up buying, like, I want to say several, like, pretty much almost all of the 450 IP champions, which there really aren't very many, honestly. There's Annie and Ash, there's Garen, and so on. Not too many of them, really. So these champions are 450, and there's Master Yi down there too. But on this page, those are the only ones, other than Amumu, which I didn't buy yet, and maybe one other one here. But so here's the thing. Anyone coming over from Dota 2 is going to have trouble learning all the champions. So that's one thing this series is going to help with. It's going to help you learn more about the champions, but it's also going to help you learn more about the various differences as well. So, let's start off with one thing I wanted to mention. It's pretty basic. Is, as far as I know anyway, there are only 3 damage types in League of Legends. That is physical damage, magical damage, and true damage. Now, champions generally do either all of 3 of those things or just 2 of them. And almost every champion does physical and magical, so there are a few that actually do true damage. And then the ones that don't, they could still access true damage either by buying items or picking various summoner spells. Now, summoner spells are kind of like, the best way to explain it would be like, you go to the Goblin laboratory, I think it's called, in Warcraft 3, and instead of like buying like Goblin Sappers or Shredder, you can actually use its ability to scan the map. You pay them gold and they scan the map for you, and it will reveal an area of the map that you normally can't see, just for a limited time, and then also reveal invisible units in that area as well. What I mean to say is, this is something that is effectively like your summoner casting it. At least that's what it's called. In actuality, the champion's really the one that's casting it. So, for example, there's a summoner spell called Flash, which it's a teleportation jump, like Blink, like from Warcraft 3. So, the thing of it is, even though it's technically called a summoner spell, I guess they need to change the name, because the champion cannot flash, he can't blink if he's ensnared, which wouldn't really make sense if the summoner's the one casting it, you would think, right? But whatever, it's not that big of a deal. And then, like, also cleanse, like, normally you can remove all disables and debuffs, but there are actually some exceptions. Like, once again, like the champion, if he's completely locked down, he just can't cast it, which is strange, but whatever. So, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is these are additions to any champion's kit. You can have 2 out of this whole list. Although on the base map, this one's not available. It's only available on the capture point map, which is also called Dominion. So, but all these other ones are available on the default map, and they're pretty fun to use. My favorite one is probably Cleanse, but I've been using pretty much all of them other than Clairvoyance. And, well, I haven't really been using Clarity either. That was pretty bad too. But, yeah, all the rest of them are pretty darn good. So, Clarity's pretty good on the ARAM map, which I don't really play, so whatever. Anyway, about champions. Okay, so this one right here is what you'd call like a hybrid damage champ, and so is this one and this one. I really like the hybrid damage champs. And then there's this guy. This guy is like a hybrid roll champ. So, sorry. Okay, so here's the thing. Let's just go ahead and talk about the way champions scale and that kind of thing, because this is something that people from League of Legends don't understand when they play Dota 2. So let's say you're coming from Dota 2 and you love playing the support role, right? So you like playing like your Shadow Shaman because you know he's so good, right? I mean, you can get an Aghanim Scepter to make his snake stronger. You could even get a Desolator if you feel like it to make a snake stronger, although I would recommend an Assault Cuirass instead, because it actually makes it harder for them to kill you. But, and then of course there's the other really good item for him called an Orc of Malevolence. Now, you know, I get a little funky sometimes with my builds, but you know, I'm really old school Dota 2 player, and the point is, I learned how to make that hero scale from Dota 2. In League of Legends, it's kind of the same way. Like every champion can scale, but it works differently. So let's examine how the champions actually scale. Now, the strange thing about League of Legends is it's more restrictive depending on the champ you are, how they scale. I'll give you a good example. Here's Garen. So Garen, actually, I don't know why he even has a bar here for ability power, because he does not scale with any ability power. It doesn't matter how much you give him, it won't do anything for him. You can still get items that give him ability power, if they've got some kind of utility that's useful for you, but it's not going to, the ability power itself isn't going to do anything for him. Not a single thing. So, but if you give him attack damage, then his abilities will get stronger. Also, if you give him defensive items, his abilities can get stronger. Okay, so so in that way, you know, he's relatively simple though. There are fewer items that are actually viable on him than if he were a Dota 2 hero, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, like you could get stuff on him, but it's not cost efficient. There are other things you could get instead. Like, for example, instead of getting in Zonia, it's an item that gives you a lot, like 120 ability power and 50 armor. You could get something cheaper called Guardian's Angel, and it also gives 50 magic resist. So it's more cost effective, it's more competitive to actually buy that, because it does the same thing Zonia's does, pretty much. It's a little bit different, but it's not that big of a deal what the differences are. They more or less do the same thing, kind of like saying Scythe of Ice, Abyssal Blade. It's kind of like that, but they're obviously these do different things. It's more like the Aegis of Immortality. But anyway, so every League of Legends champion has a basic ability. People usually call them their passive, but that's not a very descriptive term for them. Anyways, people still call it passive anyway, even though they shouldn't. Like for example, let's see, Varus. His second ability is his actual passive ability. So now this is technically a passive ability, but it's a basic ability. It's not the same thing as having something that's always going on. So I'll get more into Varus in another episode, but the point is, all these champions, they're all different. So like I said, like Shaco and Varus, they're hybrid damage champs. Garen's not. His damage scales. Well, actually, he does do magic damage though, even though he doesn't use ability power. And that's one thing that a lot of people don't know. Maybe, I guess, if they're new to League of Legends, that might benefit you to know as well. So his ultimate does magical damage, and it's basically like Necrophos from Dota 2's ultimate. There's a lot of mechanical differences, but it's effectively the same thing. The more health the opponent has missing, the more damage you're going to do to him. Now, I really can't tell you how well I could calculate this, how much damage it does, but in Dota 2 with Necrophos, I can calculate it really well and get people killed, spot on, pretty good. Especially like if I know that my ally is going to do something, then I can maybe even do it a little bit earlier. But yeah, in this game, it's instant. When he does it, I mean, it's not delayed damage, but it's still a really nice ability. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, this ability do damage, but it's physical, and this one does magical. Now this ability has no AP or AD scaling, so it only scales off of the missing health of your opponent. So the higher his maximum health is, obviously the more damage it can be doing, which is pretty cool. So yeah, really nice, and very reminiscent of Necrophos' ultimate. So now Judgment is a really cool ability, because it's basically Blade Fury from Juggernaut, but it actually critically strikes, unlike Juggernaut's Blade Fury. It's basically the same thing, only it doesn't actually give him any magic immunity or anything like that. It's just basically damage. Although in this case, it's physical damage rather than magical, so that's cool. So if you do get like a Daedalus on him, then it can critically strike. He doesn't actually have a critical strike ability, but this ability can critical strike. So you just have to get the critical strike chance, and then you'll be able to do it. So that is really fun to use, because it can really do a lot of damage. And then it also scales with AD, so you can make it do more base damage. So that's cool. So the more attack damage you get, the more damage this ability can be doing as it spins around. I'm not sure what the scaling is, but whatever. And then this also scales with AD, and it also does physical damage. So abilities, they're not always quite this simple, and you'll understand that when I talk about Shaco next, and then that'll be the end of the first episode probably. So Garen, his courage ability, I'm not really a big fan of this one, but it is nice. I guess the more armor and magic resist you get on Garen, the stronger this becomes, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's, how do I want to explain it? Oh, first, I didn't really talk about what this does. This makes him charge up his movement speed, kind of like phase boots. So, and then but it gets cancelled when you attack a guy. So it's pretty cool for running away and for chasing. So we can see the video probably here. So these videos usually suck pretty bad. Like, they really don't show the gameplay very good at all, which, like, they could totally improve on this, but whatever. So like, if you the higher your movement speed is, the more effective this ability will be too. So a lot of abilities are like this, and that's kind of how phase boots is too. You know, if you start buying like a Yule's Scepter of Divinity and Yasha, those kinds of items, then you know your phase boost is going to be more effective. Well, it's the same thing with Decisive Strike, but it also scales on attack damage too. So the more higher your attack damage is, the higher this actual ability will do, the more damage it'll do, which is great. Now, we've basically talked about all his activatable abilities. So he doesn't actually have anything. Now, these are all abilities that you learn, of course, which you probably know. But now this, he just starts off with it, and it's basically like Slark's ultimate, only significantly weaker. So with Slark's ultimate, you haven't taken damage by neutrals for 2 seconds, or you're not seen by the enemy, and there's like a delay of like a half a second or a second or something like that, then it activates and starts regenerating. So this is per second, 1/4%, which is really not that much, but keep in mind, regeneration is like typically like not that huge of a deal in League of Legends. So this is kind of cool, I guess. Yeah, the more HP you pile on him, then the stronger this is. And with, as you might imagine, if you're familiar with my Dota 2 experience at all, like, I really like Slark a lot, so I tend to build Garens with a lot of HP if I can. So, but you know, I'm not afraid to build attack damage or whatever too. So, yeah. So that's Garen. He's a pretty fun champ. He's pretty simple, and he's actually really strong, and he didn't cost me much IP, so that was great. And then who else didn't cost me much IP? Sivir didn't. She's plenty of fun. Soraka, I like her, but she's not for everyone. Oh, that's for sure. This guy's free to play. I actually bought him, and then I got a refund on him. He's not 450 though. But anyways, moving on. Let's talk about Shaco. So what I wanted to discuss about him was his, I guess I want to start off with his 2-shift poison ability. Now, first off, this is an ability that has a passive and an active. Garen might have one of those abilities too, maybe a second one, I'm not sure. But anyways, this one's quite a bit more obvious. Or maybe it's just me because I've played a lot more Shaco. So, this guy, he's got, this ability scales. So, I'll just talk about the active first. The active is, he just, he targets the champion, and he throws his daggers at him, basically. That's what happens. And then it, of course, slows them. So, yeah, like that. Not that big of a deal. It's pretty nice for chasing, but it's mainly a finishing, you know, ability. So here's how it works. All right, it does a set amount of damage, you know, like generally these abilities do. Then also scales off of any attack damage items that you buy. So it doesn't actually scale off of your attack damage though, like how some abilities will. So as your champion progresses in levels, his damage increases naturally. That's normal also in League of Legends. although they don't actually have any primary attributes for that to work. It's just one of their regular attributes, damage, attack damage. I mean, so this is what I'm trying to say is it's only bonus attack damage, which is basically from items. Now, it doesn't just scale off of attack damage though. It also scales off of ability power. And now, for anyone that doesn't know, none of the champs can have ability power unless they buy items. It's not that there's a lot of champions that, have no ability power growth per level. None of them have ability power growth per level, and they don't start off with any ability power either, unless you use masteries or runes. If you use masteries and runes, you can give your champions ability power per level or ability power at the start of the game, and that's totally legal. That's fine. Maybe not necessarily recommended, but it works. And depending on your item build and your strategy, it can actually be an effective thing to do. But other than that, you don't get AP unless you buy items. So it scales off of both of those things, and it's actually 100% scaling on both of those, I believe, which is really good. So it's really nice scaling, but the thing is, it's just a one-time thing. But still, that's nice. He makes him a really nice hybrid damage champion. Now, he's got some other abilities here too. His ultimate is really sweet. Think of it as like Chaos Knight's ultimate, only instead of making a bunch of them, it's just one extra guy. Now, he doesn't quite do 100% damage, but he does 70%. I'm not sure how much damage he takes either, but it's like 150 or 200. It's not a huge amount. I could be wrong though, but whatever the case, it's obviously more than the real one, but not always obvious, depending on how much burst your champion has. It's kind of hard to tell. And Shaco's he's generally not a very bulky champion anyway, so the bulkiness of the clone is generally non-existent, and the bulkiness of your own champion is generally non-existent, unless of course you actually build some items to make them bulkier. So, and the great thing about that is actually your clone will benefit from those bulky items. Like, you'll benefit from them all, pretty much. So that's pretty sweet. And of course, like I said, it's only 70% of the actual attack damage that he has. Now, unfortunately, he's not like a Meepo clone, which means he can't actually cast Shaco abilities. But, he gets the passives from items, and that's pretty sweet. So, keep that in mind. It's a really good ability. And then, of course, if you do kill him or he just times out, he'll explode and do damage in an area scaling off of AP, which is a lot. I'm not sure if it's 100% or not, but it probably is. If it's not, then it's pretty close to it. Anyway, it might be like 80%, who knows, but it's still pretty strong. Alright, so and then there's Jack in the Box. Now this also scales with AP, but it doesn't do any attack damage scaling at all, unlike these other two. So both of these technically will scale with both AP and AD, ability power and attack damage. So this only with ability damage, which is fine, and then the next one also only scales off of attack damage, and that's also fine. So we basically end up having, out of these four, 3 abilities that scale with attack damage and 3 abilities that scale with ability power, which is pretty nice. So that's what makes him a really good hybrid champion. Now, there are some other champion. There's one in particular that's even more of a hardcore hybrid damage champion than Shaco is, and that's Varus. But we'll talk about him another day. So Jack in the Box. This is one of my most favorite abilities in the game. Like, I just love this ability, and I'm just waiting for Riot to just buff it a little. So, but here it is. It's really sweet. I love it. It's so much fun. Check it out. So I think this video is gonna suck, but whatever. Shaco, what does he do? It's just it's like an observer ward basically. Except it's more like a monster or whatever. So what ends up happening is if she goes too close to it, then she ends up running away from it in fear, and it attacks her while she's running away. So if you like shiv her as soon as she triggers it, then she's going to be moving slowly, because this slows people. Oh, I didn't talk about the passive either. So the passive is just basically like an Eye of Scotty, basically, but it's disabled if your active has just been used and it's still on cooldown. If your active is ready, then your passive works. If your active is not ready, then passive does not work. So that's how that works. And actually, they made a change to who was he? Skeleton King or Wraith King? He had an ability called Mortal Strike that did that. It was the same functionality. It wasn't the same ability, but it was the same functionality as far as passive being disabled, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So if you're familiar with how Mortal Strike worked before the active got removed, then you know how Two Shift Poison's active and passive functionality works. Alright, so, Jack in the Box, yeah, like I said, it's basically a ward. It's invisible, so that's sweet. They can't see it unless they trigger it. But, unlike wards, the enemies can actually destroy it relatively easily. I guess there's a list of abilities that can destroy it even if you can't see it. So there's that. And then there's lots of abilities though that can't, even though they can hit an area, they can't actually hit the ward. So it's kind of hit or miss. I don't have a list. If anybody watching this has a list of abilities that can destroy Shaco's wards, let me know. I'd love to find out. But anyways, it has practically no HP. It dies in like 3 hits or 1 hit, or depending on how much damage you do. So, and then it's like it only lasts for 5 seconds while it's attacking, then it just times out. And then if it's invisible, it times out after a minute. So it's only a minute that it lasts, but it's pretty nice. You can get cooldown reduction items in this game, which is another way abilities can scale, and I love that kind of thing for Shaco. You can also get cooldown reduction masteries and runes, so, and that helps. But there's a maximum to the cooldown reduction, and that is 40%. You can't get any higher than that. So the way I want Riot to buff the Jack in the Box is to buff the duration, of them lasting while invisible, for very low percentage of AP. I'm thinking what was it? 15% for 1 second. Is that right? Or is it? Okay. I'm not sure what the percentage is, but it's every 1 second. For every 1 second, you need No. Ugh, what the hell was my idea? Jeez. You need 100 AP to get 15 seconds. Okay? So, yeah, I don't know what the hell the math is on that. But the point is, if you want to get it to last a whole minute, a whole 2 minutes instead of just 1, you're going to need 400 AP is the bottom line. That's my suggestion. Obviously, they can tweak it however much they want, but that's actually a ratio of 0.15, so no, that is 15%. Yeah, 15% scaling of duration, I think. I don't know how else you'd explain it. So anyways, yeah, 1 AP would give you a 15th of a second, is basically what that means. Alright? Or wait, I don't know, that's not right. 15 hundredths, yeah, 15 hundredths of a second. 1 AP gives you 15 hundredths of a second. Man, sorry guys, it's been a while since I tried to actually communicate about math audibly. I mean orally, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. Okay, so now and then his first skill though that he can learn, it's basically a jump, like it's a blink. It's a blink plus he goes invisible at as he's blinking, so you don't really know exactly where he's jumping to, which is pretty nice. And then he remains invisible for a few seconds. I'm not sure exactly how long. So that's pretty cool. You can of course reveal him with wards, and there are a few other things you can reveal people with, but there's no dust in the game, unfortunately, so don't go looking for that. But yeah, you will need pink wards rather than green ones. And then of course he gets like a percent damage of critical strike that's irregular, so and it scales as you level it up. So the higher you level it up, the higher the damage is, basically. And you can increase it with like masteries or items or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty nice. And then he's got backstab, which is basically a super weak version of Rikimaru's backstab. So it's just a plus 20% damage basically, which is still pretty nice. Yeah, but it's not based off of agility, so he's kind of got that going for him. So he can literally buy any attack damage boosting item he wants to if he wants to boost his backstab and deceive. That's the bottom line. And it also boosts his shift poison and his hallucinate. So you can't really go wrong with items on this guy. You can build defense if you really need it. You can build attack damage. You can buy anything practically. He's one of the most flexible champs in the game, so I really like him a lot. And then there's lots of other champs, but we'll talk about that for another time. Just before I go though, I want to talk about champion stats. Now, for some reason, you can't actually see them in the game, but every champion has starting armor, starting magic resist, which magic resist, of course, as you might imagine, defends against magical damage, and armor defends against physical damage. So, like for Garen, if you're worried about his ultimate, you gotta build items that give you magic resist. And to do that, you just go to the item list, and you just click magic resist, and you just go down the list. Like Guardian Angel, of course, is a good one. Spear Visage gives a lot, so does Banshee's Veil. These other ones give quite a bit less than those two. Those are the highest, I think. And then there's a lot of them, so find what you like. This is a really good one for like Shaco, for example. Just because it boosts his movement speed really fast, so you can catch up to somebody, so you can shiv him or whatever you want to do. And it also gives you a lot of damage, which scales nicely with your other abilities. So, and of course there's this, which also gives you magic resist, and it can save your tail a lot of times by giving you a shield when you get really low. It's practically a Guardian Angel, more or less. But anyways, it's actually pretty expensive, so whatever. Now, so that's a stat that, yeah, your health, you get a base health and then it scales per level. Your magic resist sometimes does that. A lot of champions don't have scaling magic resist. They just start out with a flat number around 25 or so. And the other ones, I think they actually start out with like 35 and it goes up to like 50 or so, something like that. So yeah, I would say just, it's hit and miss. You just check out champions as they come and look at what their scaling is. And it's like the same stuff with damage. Pretty much every champion's damage scales, I guess. I could be wrong on that, but I believe so. Their attack speeds generally will scale as well. A lot of the, like, I guess you want to say, champions that scale with attack damage, they generally have like maybe 2 or 3%, or maybe even 4%, like extra attack speed per level, which is pretty cool. But then like somebody like Gnar, he's got like 6% attack speed increase per level, so that's pretty sweet for him anyway. But so some champions might be more reliant on attack speed items than others. I'm not necessarily an expert on Gnar, so I don't know if you want to be looking at that list or whatever. But oh, did I delete something on Ash? Probably. Anyway, so what else are you gonna want to know? Movement speed is a base amount. You're gonna have to boost it with items and abilities. Gold income. You can buy items to give yourself extra gold besides what you normally start off with. And there are various ways you can do it. One lets you do it from attacking somebody. One lets you do it from just standing at the other guy has the item and gives you gold. Blah blah blah. This one just gives you extra for killing units, kind of like Alchemist's Greed, Grievel's Greed. So there's that. That's pretty cool. And this, of course, gives it to you when the other champion actually kills the minion, which is funny because it's cheaper. So so as supports, the problem in League of Legends has been the support just kind of stands around and he doesn't really get to touch the creeps a lot of the time because they want to get his marksman, whether it's an attack damage carry or ability power carry. He's generally a ranged guy, and he like I said, like a Varus, for example, he's hybrid, so if you go one or the other or both. But yeah, either way, that carry is going to be taking the last hits, and the support isn't going to be getting any. So this is like the best item for the support. If you're a carry, I would recommend this if you're ranged and you're either a hybrid or you love ability power and magic damage. Now all these items upgrade too, and this gives you a really sweet active. So I would definitely recommend upgrading this one because it slows their movement speed by 80%. I think this is one of the biggest slows in the game, if not the biggest. So it's really nice, and it does quite a bit of damage too. It's got a 60-second cooldown, which of course, if with a 40% cooldown reduction, it's like I'm not sure whatever that is. It's like, I don't know, 35 seconds or something like that. So that's pretty sweet. And then if you upgrade this one, it's just kind of like you can actually give your ally a shield. I haven't actually used it yet. And then it also explodes. So I guess it's kind of like a Baden's aphotic shield. So that would be pretty fun to buy. But I probably wouldn't buy this item unless I was an actual carry that was melee. It doesn't give enough to melee supports. If I was a melee support, I'd rather pick up an ancient coin. So there's that. But yeah, normally like the marksmen, the ranged carries are so darn popular in League right now that it's really rare that you'll get to be able to carry with at bottom lane with a melee. But you could always try just like trying it with like one of your favorite melee champs. Like I've actually gotten people to agree to me going with Shaco bottom lane, but not everyone agrees, and someone ends up leaving the game and it doesn't work. But yeah, I mean, if you could find a group where everyone agrees with it, you could try it out and see if the relic shield will help you out, because having basically an aphotic shield on standby would be really nice, as you upgrade this item. And of course this one, it just gives like everyone a boost of movement speed, so kind of like a mini Centaur ultimate, so Centaur War Runner ultimate, as you upgrade the ancient coin. And like, so I don't actually always upgrade this just because it's so incredibly cost efficient. It kind of depends on whatever champion you're playing, but I probably should upgrade it more often. Anyway, what else do I want to talk about? Yeah, I'd like to be able to show you all the stats and how they break down with the what the heck is that? Oh, it is okay. So I'm just recently coming to ranked, and we're gonna have to do an episode about this later once I learn more about it. But it looks like they show it's kind of like StarCraft 2. See, I'm like rank 2 right now, and because like all these guys are in silver 4, I guess I'm in a league with all these other people. And once I get up to rank 1, then I will be up for promotion like Sketch Pony of Pat is. So I have to like kick him off, or he has to get promoted and somebody else gets there, and I have to rise above him, I guess, is the bottom line. I don't know. But once I hit 100 points, I guess, if I hit 100 points, then I get to be up for promotion. I think that's how it goes. But this is, oh, maybe they'll enter me into a different league after every game I play. I'm not really sure. I'm going to start checking this and like screenshotting it, I guess, or whatever. But anyway, yeah, this is pretty cool. You can obviously see your progress a lot easier, as you're going through these leagues, um, compared to Dota 2, where you just get like a number that basically doesn't mean anything. So that's definitely pretty nice. I like that. Let's see what happens if I could see who's in other divisions, huh? Which I suppose I have to compete with eventually. I would imagine. Wow, there's a lot of people. There's more people in some of these other divisions than in mine. It looks like, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Wow. Huh. I wonder why that is. I guess it doesn't really matter that much. There's just fewer people playing solo queue that landed in this. I'm gonna do more research on this. But anyways, yeah, the champions do have all their stats, and they're not all equal in their stats, just like Dota 2. But the stats are different. It's not strength, agility, intelligence. It's all these individual little stats. Much more like an RPG, a traditional one, I would say. But it's still pretty cool, pretty fun to play. It's all real-time strategy. So, yeah, it's quite a bit of fun. And yeah, those are basics. That's Garen and Shaco shakedowns, explaining them. And next episode we'll tackle some more.